Good morning. Are you ready for the fight tonight? Amen. Well, it's such a pleasure to have each of you here in chapel this morning, a very special Veterans Day chapel. And let me just make a couple announcements, and then we will proceed on. Business seminar is entitled From Class to Reality. That is next week on Tuesday through Thursday in the Hagee Performance Center. It'll take place during chapel. You'll not want to miss that opportunity. Don't forget, women's basketball is at home tonight and then tomorrow morning playing games, and so you'll want to be sure to support them. And then Jama'ah prayer is from noon during the lunch hour today. And so if you have time, be sure to spend some time praying during the Jama'ah prayer time. We want to welcome our guests, and I know that we're getting started here and there'll be others coming in, but we would like to recognize the guests that have come today. It's because of them we're able to do what we do in our country. And if you've ever had the opportunity to travel overseas, you realize what a difference the veterans of the United States make for us as a country. So I'd like for all of the veterans that are in the audience to please stand as we honor you today and say thank you so very much for your service to us. Thank you so very, very much. You may be seated. But I'd like to ask two individuals that are here today that are still on active duty. They're stationed here in Waxahachie, just right next door at the National Guard Armory, Sergeant Henson and Sergeant Attaway. Thank y'all so very much for taking time out of your busy day to be with us today. And then one last thing to the veterans, and I'm looking here because this is the most, but if there's veterans that are sitting out elsewhere, please join us down front after chapel, and we would like to have a time of taking a photo with our speakers, and then also we'll talk about lunch at that time. Thank you and God bless.
Dawn's Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, you may be seated. The next selection we're going to do, if you or a loved one has served in the armed forces, please stand when your service song is played.
May I just say that following that is not easy. I was up there wanting to cry and thinking that when it's my time, don't cry. But patriotism, the flag, thinking of the ways that people have honored our nation just get to me. On July 14th, 1861, a soldier wrote a letter to his wife. Sullivan Ballou, a major in the Union Army, was one among thousands of soldiers gathering on both sides near Washington, D.C. for what would be the first major conflict in the Civil War, the Battle of Bull Run, fought on July 21st, 1861. The letter captures the emotions that maybe not all, but surely most soldiers must feel before battle: uncertainty of the outcome, awareness that it could be disastrous, if not for self, then for countless others. It captures Sullivan Ballou's belief in his cause. It captures his love for country, his faith. It also captures very clearly his love for his wife, Sarah, and their 2 small sons. The letter is filled with honor, dignity, and also with courage. Courage, it seems to me, is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to stand and face what you would rather not have to face. The root of the word courage is C-O-R, the Latin word for heart. Courage is a steady heart in spite of fear. A week after Sullivan Ballou wrote this letter, he was wounded by cannon fire in the Battle of Bull Run. He died a week later. He was 32 years old. His wife, Sarah, was 24. She never remarried. She died at the age of 80 in 1917 and was buried beside her husband in a cemetery in their native Rhode Island. Ironically, this letter was never sent. Ballou went on to write several other letters that were more lighthearted in the week before the battle that he did send to his wife. This letter was discovered among his effects when the governor of Rhode Island went to Virginia to recover the remains of the fallen sons of Rhode Island. It stands today as a testament to the courage of soldiers in all times, to all who were willing, to all who are willing to make the sacrifices that freedom and justice demand. Rachel Eubanks, one of our students, reads the letter today. She represents the families and friends of soldiers who also sacrifice when their loved ones surrender to military service. We offer this letter in honor of all veterans and all who serve today, who have lived out or who live out John 15:13. Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. Thank you.
My very dear Sarah, the indications are very strong that we shall move in a few days, perhaps tomorrow. Lest I should not be able to write you again, I feel impelled to write lines that may fall under your eye when I shall be no more. Our movement may be one of a few days' duration and full of pleasure, and it may be one of severe conflict and death to me. Not my will, but thine, O God, be done. If it is necessary that I should fall on the battlefield for my country, I am ready. I have no misgivings about or lack of confidence in the cause in which I am engaged, and my courage does not halt or falter. I know how strongly American civilization now leans upon the triumph of the government, and how great a debt we owe to those who went before us through the blood and suffering of the Revolution. And I am willing, perfectly willing, to lay down all my joys in this life to help maintain this government and to pay that debt. But, my dear wife, when I know that with my own joys I laid down nearly all of yours and replaced them in this life with cares and sorrows, when, after having eaten for long years the bitter fruit of orphanage myself, I must offer it as their only sustenance to my dear little children, is it weak or dishonorable, while the banner of my purpose floats calmly and proudly in the breeze, that my unbounded love for you, my darling wife and children, should struggle in fierce, though useless contest with my love of country? I cannot describe to you my feelings on this calm summer night, when 2,000 men are sleeping around me, many of them enjoying the last, perhaps, before that of death, and I, suspicious that death is creeping behind me with his fatal dart, and communing with God, my country, and thee. I have sought most closely and diligently, and often in my breast, for a wrong motive, and thus hazarding the happiness of those I loved, and I could not find one. A pure love of my country and of the principles have often advocated before the people, and the name of honor that I love more than I fear death have called upon me, and I have obeyed. Sarah, my love for you is deathless. It seems to bind me to you with mighty cables that nothing but omnipotence could break. And yet my love of country comes over me like a strong wind and bears me irresistibly on with all these chains to the battlefield. The memories of the blissful moments I have spent with you come creeping over me, and I feel most gratified to God and to you that I have enjoyed them so long. And hard it is for me to give them up and burn to ashes the hopes of future years, when, God willing, we might still have lived and loved together and seen our sons grow up to honorable manhood around us. I have, I know, but few and small claims upon divine providence, but something whispers to me, perhaps it is the wafted prayer of my little Edgar, that I shall return to my loved ones unharmed. If I do not, my dear Sarah, never forget how much I love you, and when my last breath escapes me on the battlefield, it will whisper your name. Forgive my many faults and the many pains I have caused you. How thoughtless and foolish I have oftentimes been. How gladly would I wash out with my tears every little spot upon your happiness and struggle with all the misfortune of this world to shield you and my children from harm. But I cannot. I must watch you from the spirit land and hover near you, while you buffet the storms with your precious little freight and wait with sad patience till we meet to part no more. But, oh, Sarah, if the dead can come back to this earth and flit unseen around those they loved, I shall always be near you. In the garish day and in the darkest night, amidst your happiest scenes and gloomiest hours, always, always. And if there be a soft breeze upon your cheek, it shall be my breath. Or the cool air fans your throbbing temple, it shall be my spirit passing by. Sarah, do not mourn me dead. Think I am gone and wait for thee, for we shall meet again. As for my little boys, they will grow as I have done, and never know a father's love and care. Little Willie is too young to remember me long, and my blue-eyed Edgar will keep my frolics with him among the dimmest memories of his childhood. Sarah, I have unlimited confidence in your maternal care and your development of their characters. Tell my two mothers, his and hers, I call God's blessing upon them. Oh, Sarah, I wait for you there. Come to me and lead thither my children. Sullivan.
Good morning. My name is Mike Miller, class of 78, Sagu. Anybody 17 in here? I saw a couple of wannabes, I'm not sure. In 1917, a young man who had just turned 17, we were in the middle of World War I, walked in, with his mother's permission, walked in and enlisted in the Army. Short time later, as a machine gunner, he was with his squad in battle in Belgium, and everyone in his squad but he was killed. That was my grandfather. He was a godly man, but he carried the wounds of war with him. Later in 1942, he enlisted in the Coast Guard, and he was a veteran of both world wars. So as a representative of that great generation of World War I thank my grandfather for his service. In 1942 or 44, I can't remember the date, a 20-year-old guy named William Tippins was in a foxhole in Italy, and a mortar round came in and blew him out of the foxhole. The wound he had in his abdominal area was so bad that, and I apologize for the graphics, his intestines were were outside of his stomach. A German walked up to him, a German soldier, and he said in perfect English, "For you, the war is over. You've got two choices. There's an aid station 3 kilometers from here. You can pick yourself up and walk the rough terrain for that 3 kilometers, and I'll fill your canteen up with water so you can pour water over your wound, or I'll end it for you right here. It's your choice." He picked himself up. His gun with 1 bullet was given to his escort because now he was a prisoner of war, and he walked the 3 kilometers, ended up hospitalized, escaped from the hospital, was recaptured. Boots were taken away from him, and ended up escaping again later, and got back to the good side. About 7 years ago, I was on an aircraft, a military aircraft, with then Chief Master Sergeant retired William Tippin, and heard his story. What a wonderful story. Part of the greatest generation. Chief Tippin, as a representative of World War II veterans, I salute you and I thank you for your service. My father served in Korea. He'll be 80 next month. Dad, on behalf of the veterans of the Korean War, I salute you and thank you for your service. Brother Dave, as a young man, and you must have been really young as well, I said as a young man in service in Arkansas and heard your testimony. You're a member of a group of veterans that were largely forgotten for so long. Spat upon, ridiculed, all those things. I'd like to apologize to you on behalf of our nation and to all the veterans you represent. Sir, I salute you. Now, I've had the opportunity to travel the world and see our young men and women who serve today, and I'll tell you that same spirit of sacrifice and commitment is there today. I've seen the wounded. I've seen people with horrific wounds. I've met them on the tarmac, and I want you to know that we're in good hands with the generation that you represent and those that go before you. So to all of our veterans here today, thank you so much. For those who may never serve in the military, I ask you to continue to do what you did this morning. Support our veterans. Give them your love. And many of you, although you may not be in military uniform, just as the Lord put his hand on Gideon and he said, "You are a mighty warrior." So you are almighty warriors as you prepare for service to the commander of the universe. God bless you and thank you.
And to my classmate, fellow basketball team member, General Mike Miller, we salute you in your service. Our purpose here today really had two primary purposes, and General Miller has focused on one of those. We wanted this to be we wanted to reinforce in each one here, especially our students, but to all of us, the responsibility that we have to give thanks to those who sacrifice on our part, to appreciate living in a nation that gives us the freedom that we have. This nation isn't perfect, but I can guarantee you it is far better than any other nation in this world. And then the second thing we wanted to do was to be able to honor our veterans. And this is the first time, to my knowledge, that we have invited veterans from our community to be here. And for each of you, who maybe you've never stepped foot on this campus, or you've never been in this facility, or it's been a long time, thank you for coming out and giving us the opportunity to express appreciation to you. Now we are blessed to have a wonderful guest speaker. Dave Roever has an amazing story. Dave is an alum of SAGU. Dave was part of the brown water Black Beret Marines in Vietnam, suffered incredible injuries, a Purple Heart recipient. He has had an amazing career and ministry, touching the lives of people across this nation, literally tens, hundreds of thousands. Traveled with the Billy Graham Association. There's been a movie made of his life. He invests his life in veterans. He does so much work in the nation of Vietnam. The nation of Vietnam, ironically, where he fought, has given him incredible opportunities. And now, in these last number of years, a very, very strategic focus on ministering to wounded warriors. We are honored to have Dave Roever here today. Would you welcome this brother? And I know you're going to be touched.
So honored to have you here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Well, it's a great privilege to be here, and I want to join the other voices and say thanks to our wonderful veterans who have provided for us the opportunity to be in a setting where the Taliban will not roll a hand grenade down this aisle. Al-Qaeda won't blow a truck bomb in the parking lot. And ISIS will not behead a believer today in this room. Because while we dressed to come to exercise our freedom of religion, the United States military was up all night ensuring we have that freedom. God bless our troops all over the world. Amen. When I attended, we didn't have this luxurious and beautiful accommodation of such an edifice as this. But my mind goes back to the older chapel where I sat and listened to some of the greatest speakers that ever held a microphone and addressed an audience. And today I'm not worthy to fill this spot, but I am not stupid. I will take this opportunity. Some of you, we've never met. You're looking me over, and I'm looking you over. You wonder what happened to me, and I was wondering how y'all doing. It's also a great joy to me to have tradition carried on. I was going to invite my grandson to join me on the platform and just make the statement that it's God's blessing in my life that I came home alive. And the first place I went to when I got out of the hospital was right straight back to SAGU, where I knew that I would be safe in the arms of fellow students who would receive me and make me not be afraid, because I came back with very little image that I had left with. But today my image is carried on. My grandson, he wouldn't come up here. He said, no. But I'm going to make him stand. I want you to know that's my grandson. Where are you, Kobe? Stand up, big guy. That's my boy right there. Love you, Kobe. And your mama sent your Star Wars lunch pail for lunch today. Sorry, Bubba. You're a happy crowd. Seems like you're just on alert and catching everything. This has been a great week for me already. I do a lot of presentations around military events and holidays that are military oriented. And today, of course, is probably one of the most commonly requested, this and 4th of July. But I love Veterans Day because I get to honor those that have given so much. And yesterday I spoke for the Mint over in Fort Worth, where they make money. I asked for free samples. They denied my request. Tomorrow I'm on with the Beach Boys for an American Airlines event, and I'm going to be the beach ball they're going to kick around more than likely. So these are wonderful times, but I can tell you right now, the most important event for me this Veterans Day week is right here, right now with you. This is what I've been looking forward to more than anything else. Of all the things I get to do this week, this is the best of the best. I remember so well the call of God being solidified in my life. Focus came. And little did I know that even while I wasn't making good grades, I have to admit, they were below sea level. You can tell I was in the Navy, can't you? Some of you didn't catch that. It's the platform's a little high and you're a little short, went right over your head there. But I was a student here when I was working at General Dynamics, and I studied less and worked more and got a big check and a low grade and got drafted. And so they told me in the Navy, which, by the way, when I was being drafted, it was into the Army. I went out and joined the Navy so I wouldn't get hurt serving in the military. I got up one morning and had a bad decade. But I went out and joined the Navy, and they trained me out. My boot camp was out of Southern California at Nimitz. They call it Nimitz Training Facility. And then after that, I went up for a short stint to the Great Lakes Naval Training Center. Then they sent me to Coronado, California, where I was trained by SEAL Team 1 and served in Vietnam in association with SEAL Team 1. But I'll make it very clear, I was not a SEAL. I was a brown water, black beret. We were a tiny little organization within the Special Operations community of the U.S. Navy. And today we're called Special Boat Teams instead of brown water, black beret. Featured in 2 movies, one called Apocalypse Now, and the other one, Acts of Valor. And if you saw Acts of Valor, you saw the more upgraded and amazing boats. Just a little technical aspiration for those of you that look to serving in the military. That was a lot of fun. We had 250 calibers in the front, one in the back, 2 M60s in the middle. Everybody had their personal M16s and sidearms, though there were only 4 people on a boat and 2 boats. So there were 8 of us involved in what's called today the Special Warfare Command. I'm a SWCC sailor, it's called. And on July the 26th, 1969, I know that sounds like right after that letter was written that you heard a while ago, but it was like yesterday to me. My life would change. And I want to tell you a few things that led up to that. First of all, I need to go back and let you know that I was raised in a Christian home. My dad was a pastor, and my mom, those of you that may have ever known her will remember she was invalid. When I was born, she almost died, and she never got over it and did die from that eventually, but it took many years, curled up in a fetal position in a nursing home. And yet, when she could speak and when she could communicate, she never once, ever, 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 never blamed God. No, why me, God, little pathetic stuff that so many people do. She never did that. And on that day in Vietnam, July the 26th, 1969, it never entered my mind to blame God that I was injured that day. I remember coming to the great Metroplex back when I was 15 years old. On my 16th birthday, we moved into Lake Worth Assembly of God Church, and I met a little girl there that kind of messed with me. She's not my high school sweetheart, she's my junior high school sweetheart. I was 16 when I met her. I was 16 when I asked her to be my wife. I was 16 when she slapped me. She said, I'm only 13 years old. I said, but you have the body of a 14-year-old. She slapped me again. That was TMI, too much information. I was typical AG boy, possessed with the urge to merge. And she was not She was not so possessed. And I can tell you, she poured water on my jet engines and cooled me down real quick. And just for the record, I want to tell you, when she said, if you love me, you'll wait for me, I did tell her I'd pick you up at 10, but I knew what she meant. I waited till she graduated, and a few days later, we got married. And just for the record, we were both virgin. You can clap, I'll wait. Well, thank you. Yesterday, I spoke at Terrell High School, and there are a couple of thousand students. It's a great event, huge event. And it's amazing how today's young people, even in high school, not in a Christian university, but in a public school, give standing ovations for things that we thought were perfectly normal. Today, a hero is that person that just does what's right. They just do what's right, and they think, oh, that's out of the box. That's heroism. Well, if you do what's right, not only are you better off, but the people associated with you are better off, but then you get all kinds of acclaim just because you did what was right. And used to be that was expected of us. Well, I tried to do what was right, and I grew up to love the Lord and love God and love my country. But having an invalid mom, I ended up having most of my childhood under the tutorship of a Mexican nanny named Maria Rubio. And I didn't speak English until I was 6 years old. And they told me I was not a Mexican. Broke my little Hispanic heart. They said I cried for 6 weeks. I was a confused kid. And then I go in the military, and I had to be trained in a foreign language called Vietnamese, very difficult language. And at times, my Spanish verbs would get into my Vietnamese nouns. And they'd say, what'd you say? Are you speaking Vietnamese or Spanish, or are you Pentecostal? I speak with many tongues. And in all my training, they never taught me how to say goodbye to Brenda. And when I kissed her goodbye at the airport, it was the hardest thing I ever did emotionally in my life to this day. I kissed her goodbye, and I turned and walked away so proud of myself that I didn't cry. But I knew that there's a good chance I wouldn't come back. We had the highest killed in action, KIA, percentile of anybody in the military at that time during the war. We weren't called KIA, though, because if they don't recover the body that goes down with those little fiberglass boats we were on, it's 7 years before you're declared killed in action. In the meantime, you're missing in action. So the record doesn't verify what I'm saying because we're MIA. But the reality of the record is we were KIA. And I looked at her when I turned to walk away thinking I'd never see her again. And I did okay, like I said, about 5 steps. And she called my name. She didn't say David, she said Davy. And when she says Davy, I melt. I turned to butter. I turned around mad at myself because in 1 second tears came to my eyes. I looked at her and said, what? So upset because now my little charade is blown. My cover's gone. What do I say to her? Davy. I said, what? She said, are you coming back? Most difficult question that to this day in all my tours overseas with the military, and I work for the Department of Defense. I'm what's called a resiliency coach in the Comprehensive Soldier Fitness Program, and I'm sent all over the world, literally. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, UAE, Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo, South Korea, you name it. If our troops are there, that's where they send me. And she looked at me and said, are you coming back? To this day, she still asks that question when I leave. You know what I answered her that day? I said, I'll be back without a scar. Why did I say that? I could just say, I'll be back. Then I could be governor of California. No, I had to go stick that scar thing in there, and I think it was God's way of preparing both of us. But I knew when I said it, when those words passed my lips, I knew I just made a promise I cannot keep. And it broke my heart when I walked away. And I can still taste the salt of her tears on my lips. She lost her handsome young prince that day. A frog came back. I almost croaked. I'm sorry, I just thought of that. That right there is funny. I don't care who you are. That's pretty good. So I ended up in Vietnam for 8 months of a 13-month planned tour. On July the 23rd, 3 days before the injury I'm remembered for, 3 days before, I was injured in a relatively minor but significant injury. It pulled me off the river for 3 days. And when I went back on the river, we went back to the same place we'd gone through that attack on the 23rd. We were looking for arms, ammunition, personnel, any indication of how many people, how many weapons, what kind of weapons, how many rounds were fired, trying to get an idea of what the enemy was like. Well, you don't go back without great risk. They booby trap dead bodies. They booby trap everything they can because they know you're coming back. When I went back, I never got off my boat. I knew something was wrong. I crawled in the forward gun tub and pulled the pin on a white phosphorus hand grenade that burns at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, twice the heat necessary to melt the engine out of your car. I drew back to throw, and that was the last act of military I would perform for my government. A bullet was fired out the end of an AK-47 by a little Viet Cong somewhere in the bush. He was shooting at my head. I'm relatively sure he missed. He hit my hand and blew the grenade right beside my head. And in 1 second, literally 1 second, my life changed forever. 60 pounds was estimated to be blown off my body that day, and I kept both legs and arms. When I looked down, my face was on my boots. I looked closer, I could see my heart beating. And I noticed that with every beat of my heart, blood would shoot out of an open artery, the shrapnel severed in my wrist. My brain said, this is it. You're dying for people you don't even know. But as I looked closer, a little piece of that phosphorus was down in that bullet hole, and it was just swirling, boiling in its own little bath of blood. And it cauterized the artery that was causing me to bleed out. And everywhere I was burned, almost half my body, my skin was gone. It was now seared, and that searing held my blood in my body. I was never given blood to survive. That day, the thing that almost killed me kept me alive. It's kind of like getting saved. It's kind of like getting saved. It really hurts to get rid of all that stuff, but the thing that hurt the most is the thing that blesses you forever when Jesus comes into your heart. And oh yeah, there's a lot of things change, and it hurts a little, but it's what's going to keep you alive. Don't be afraid to make that decision to follow Christ. You say, well, Mr. Roever, you're talking to a university full of college students, university students, serving the Lord. Oh yeah? Well, they weren't all when I was here. A bunch of them need to get saved. And if you're not walking in the light of the gospel of Jesus Christ shed abroad in your heart, get right with God. I'm serious. Get right with the Lord. And I did. But it was not that day. It happened when I was 16 years old. The same year I fell in love with Brenda, I fell in love with Jesus. And from that day to standing here through the hell I've been through, I can tell you right now, it's been a great journey. It's been an amazing adventure. And I'd do it all again, as long as I didn't know it was coming. Yeah. Well, the grenade blew. I went blind in my eye, deaf in my ear. It blew my hair off. I got my hair back. I bought it. There's a guy in China wondering why he's bald. I don't mind the hairpiece. I just hate chasing it across church parking lots on windy Sundays. And I've done that before. I was at the Citadel speaking for the military school there, and afterwards I was walking across the parking lot with the general, 4 stars. I mean, this is a great opportunity to build a friendship with a man of authority and leave a good impression. And the wind whipped up. My hair came off, and it's like a frisbee going out across that parking lot. That's bad enough, but a dog beat me to it. A little mutt, and brought it back to me. How do you know I needed it? I don't understand that. My ear's artificial. That's my favorite body part that falls off. I was preaching in Jamaica the night it fell off, and everybody was sucking air like a Hoover, and I knew I've got to do something quicker. It's going to be Jonestown without the grape Kool-Aid. I looked over, my ears laying on my shoulder. I picked it up, dried the sweat, stuck it back on. I thought, okay, it's all right. It got worse. They thought it was a miracle of mine, and they all got saved. I couldn't tell them it wasn't a miracle. It was a phony ear. They would have thought I was a phony preacher and stoned me. And they didn't want me coming to SAGU telling you I went to Jamaica and got stoned. Everybody goes down there and gets stoned. Let's all get stoned. So I'm happy to tell you today I'm 71 years old, going on 50. 50's a new 30, and according to Common Core math, I'm 20. And I have never smoked a joint. I've never put a needle in my vein. I've never taken a pill to get high. I can hallucinate on a half dosage of St. Joseph's aspirin for children. I am totally virgin to any of that garbage in my life. The only beer I ever tasted, my brother-in-law gave me, and I threw up. I guess you could say I drank a beer, but I didn't swallow. Bill Clinton and I are good friends. That took a minute, but you'll get it. Willie Nelson wasn't even there. That's a shock. That day in Vietnam, I tasted my first taste of eternity. I couldn't tell you which side of the veil I was on for a few moments, but scriptures I learned as a young boy started coming alive in my memory. Scriptures like, I would you should understand, brethren, that the things which have happened unto me have fallen out rather to the furtherance of the gospel. God was already telling me, it's all right, Dave, you're going to make it. I'm going to see you through, and I'm going to use it. So my motto has been from that day to this, never let a good scar go to waste. And it goes on in verse 19. For I know, and this is, by the way, Philippians chapter 1, I know that this shall turn to my salvation. Did you hear that? This shall turn to my salvation through your prayer and the supply of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, that according to my earnest expectation and hope, in nothing I shall be ashamed, but with all boldness as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or by death. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. That came to my mind while I was on fire on a riverbank in Vietnam on the border with Cambodia, deep in a jungle I should never have come out of. Don't tell me there's no God. I've seen him. I know him. He is a friend of mine. So I'm here today to tell you that sometimes life gets a little difficult. It's hard to know that there's hope. But never lose hope. It's your last line of defense against suicide. I didn't know where this would take me at that time. I jumped into the water off my little fiberglass riverboat, but I was shocked to discover I burned in the water. Water cannot extinguish phosphorus. My skin was all around me. I was beside myself. Junior hires really like it when I'm gross. I needed to pull myself together, right? I swam out of the water. I was on my knees. I saw the damage. I'm still pumping blood out of that artery. And now I'm watching it seal itself off. And I'm going to be all right. I didn't feel any pain. If I'd felt the pain that I ultimately did feel, if I'd felt that time, I would never have believed I could live. But I kept hearing this over and over in my head, to live is Christ, to live is Christ, to live is Christ. Then I fell over backwards. They all thought I died. And it went all the way to the Pentagon through my chain of command that I was KIA. The medic thought I was KIA. They rolled me onto a stretcher to run to the helicopter that came to pick me up. It was called a dust-off. I was still burning. When they rolled me over, the stretcher caught on fire, ripped open. I fell through on my head. It was just one of those days. They rolled me up in wet blankets, of all things, Army blankets. I'm Navy Special Forces. Why they, Army blankets? Really? That's enough to kill a good sailor. They slid me into the helicopter and away we go, and the medics filled out my death report. When I was killed, where I was killed, who killed me, et cetera, and I'm under the blanket and the shock is wearing off. I'm starting to feel it. And I'm going to tell you now, I don't remember the pain. I just remember my reaction to it, and I'm not going to try to remember the pain. Never kick a sleeping dog, amen? I remember what I did when it started hurting so bad. I said, medic! And out from under that blanket, that voice came. That medic almost jumped out of the helicopter. The pilot lost control, I think. We're dropping like a rock, and I thought, oh, Lord, we're going to crash, and I'll be the only survivor. They got me to Saigon and then to Japan, and that's when things got rough. People have always said to me, boy, that day in Vietnam had to be the worst day of your life. I said, oh, not the worst day. The most difficult day of my life didn't happen in Vietnam. It happened in Japan. In Vietnam, I wasn't trying to kill myself. In Japan, when I saw myself in the mirror, they held over my face. I knew there was no teenage girl in the world could love a freak and a monster like that. My first love and my first wife were on the line. And I knew I would lose her. And I made a decision that I'm sorry to tell you what I did, but I have to tell you the whole truth or it's not the truth. I decided I would kill myself, and I had no gun or knife. How do they keep you alive? All those tubes. I just unplugged one. I laid my head back and I waited to die. And I got hungry. It's the wrong tube. I pulled out lunch. You can die that way, but it's going to take a while. And if you smell a pizza, you're singing, plug it in, plug it in. You really don't want to die. And listen to me, students, no one has to tell me what takes place on a university campus. No one has to tell me in an audience this size that there's some of you that deal with that old suicidal demon every day. He's trying to oppress you, would love to possess you. Resist him and never let go of hope. That last line of defense against suicide, hope that Jesus is still the answer and he's going to see you through. You're going to make it. You're going to be fine. I promise you. Never give up. Never give up. And they chewed me out for pulling the tube. And they said, if you can do that, we're going to send you home. They canceled my wife's flight to come escort my remains because they didn't think I'd live that long. And they sent me home on a C-141 hospital jet to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, where I am today, a patient again. Since January, I've had 5 operations. Of the 55 I've had, the last 5 were to rebuild my face, 48 years after my injury. Those of you that know me from the past know I only had part of a nose. I got the whole schmeal, Bubba. I got a nose back. I'm proud. It's a boy. I have lips again, and I don't drool, and I have eyelids. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a big fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men have been trying to put Humpty back together again. They can't quite get there. But the king came along one day and Humpty's back. Humpty's back. I know what'll happen. They'll finish my last surgery. I'll look great and Jesus will come the next day. They sent me to America, to Brooke Army Medical Center, as I said. They let visitors come see us. I was in a room called Death Row. That's what we nicknamed it. I knew that the 13 of us in that room were expected to die. They didn't want us dying on the main ward where we would discourage patients that had a chance. So they put us in a room where we could discourage each other to death. And it worked. I'm the only one that lived. Everyone in the room died. The guy in the bed next to mine, 100% third degree, no skin. His wife walked in, threw her ring on the bed, walked out saying, you're embarrassing. I couldn't walk down the street with you. And I'm laying there saying, oh, God, please don't let her walk in. Don't let Brenda come here. I didn't want her to see me. I couldn't tell which tube to pull. And before I had a chance anyway, the door opens. She's standing there in a mini skirt. I said, Doc, I'm getting better. She walked up to my bed, kissed what was left of my face, looked me in my good eye, and she said, I want you to know I love you. Welcome home, Davy. And when she says, Davy, hey, hey, hey. I said, I'm sorry, Brenda. She said, why? I think you know why. I said, I'm sorry. I made that promise. I'd come back without a scar, and now this beautiful girl's stuck with a monster. I'm sorry, I can't look good for you ever again. She said, Davy, you never were good looking. Listen to you, y'all are cold. The Bible says, you shall know the truth, and it shall tick thee off. And I knew I was in trouble. But she saw me through it. I'm telling you, 50 years later, we're still together, Bubba. What do you think of that? 50 years. I'm glad I pulled the wrong tube. I would never have had a grandson without love. I got 2 grandsons and 2 granddaughters, and they live up to their term, grand. I love them. They're wonderful. I'm so glad I didn't die. And I'm not this emotional. It's the carpet. It makes my eyes water. I'm allergic. Guys, don't ever give up. Don't ever quit. Don't stop. God's got a plan for your life. I left this school and I went on the road. I've spoken in the greatest venues on this planet. I've addressed over 350,000 people at one time. I'm not bragging. Listen. I had everything a guy could ever want. And in one fell swoop, in one moment of time, on September 11, 2001, my life changed. I spun around, looked at my wife, and I said, baby, I need an M16. She said, you need to sit down before you have a stroke. Women, you can't live with them, and you can't live with them. They're so practical. So I sat down because I knew that if I didn't, I'd stroke out, and she'd stand over me saying, I told you. I tried to re-enlist. They laughed at me. They said, you've already been medically discharged at 100% permanent and total disability, not counting mental. What is it with mental? 240%. How'd they know that? They don't know. 2 weeks later, I got a call, and they said, we've considered your offer, not in the military, but with the Department of Defense. We'd like you to become a touring speaker to our young warriors, that there's hope after injury and life after war. I said, let me pray about it. Amen. Okay. That's how long it took. I was made for this. And so today they send me, as I've already shared with you, all over the world, to places I can tell you and some places I can't. Not because I'm cool, but because wherever there's a warrior hurting, they've got $1 million invested in that soldier. They can't afford to lose it because nobody cared enough to go talk to them and help them through that dark moment. So I get sent. I love my job. It is life-saving, life-giving, because I'm sent as a spiritual helper to our wounded. I get to do what chaplains don't even get to do and get paid for it. Wow. Not much, but I get paid for it. So I'd like to close by telling you that today, wherever they send me, I look back over the years, and of all my tours, 6 to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan, in particular 2 countries, one of the things that my job entailed was escorting the remains in that little canister called a transfer case we call a casket. The valiant remains of someone who loved me more than their own life. I've sat for hours grinding away through the battlefields of the Middle East, looking at those caskets, saying, oh God, maybe the answer to the disease of cancer died with this young warrior. Maybe the cure for AIDS died with this young warrior. The grandkids that could have been to this young warrior's parents, the children he could have had for himself or herself, lost forever. In my work, I've been privileged to build 2 places. One is called Eagle Summit Ranch, Texas, down near Kerrville. The other, Eagle Summit Ranch, Colorado, at 9,000 feet in southern Colorado. Both of them an hour and a half from the largest military installations in the country. Fort Sam Houston with Brooke Army Medical Center, the largest trauma hospital in the world. It's there where I'm being restored. But it's there I'm sent. And November the 30th, I speak to every wounded person in that hospital. It's unbelievable. The doors have opened because of the scars. Jesus was not, well, he didn't go to Calvary in a limousine and die by lethal injection. They crucified the Son of God, hands up, palms out, and the whole world could see his scars. And when he says, I know how you feel, he has a scar to prove it. They don't send me because I'm good looking. I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it. They don't send me for my mighty military strength. There's a chair here in case I get too tired and can't stand very long, but I'm doing good this morning. They don't send me because of my academic achievements. I was in the top 10% of the lower 1/3 of my class. And 5 out of 4 people don't even understand fractions. If you didn't get that, I didn't say it. So I have a little short video I'd like to show you to conclude. And I'm running just a couple of minutes over. Is it okay to show that? Okay. I like thumbs up. I just wish I had one. I tried to hitchhike in England, because it's the left hand. And They thought I was shaking my fist at them. They shook their fist back. I tried a different finger. They tried to run over me. So I got thumbs up. I want to show you a little video. It will show you the places I've been and have gone and continue to go. And if you've been in the military in this war on terror, you've probably been down range. You'll recognize a few places. But for security reasons, I'm not permitted to name those places in the video. You'll see pictures, just little short ones, of the ranch in Texas and the one in Colorado. You'll also see the one part of the leg of journey home that I never got to take for my warriors. I got them as far as Baghdad, then I had to go back. For other parts of my mission or to bring more back to Baghdad to the mortuary, they're sent home to the mortuary in Dover, Delaware. I was there and spoke to the CIA, the FBI, to Fort Meade, which is an intelligence operation for all branches of the military, and to the Air Force Base there at Dover. But Dover, Delaware has the National Morgue, and the mortuary affairs of the U.S. Air Force tend to it. And the colonel came to me and he said, "Have you ever been through the morgue?" I said, "No, thank God." He said, "Can I take you?" He said, "I'd like to show you the morgue." I said, "I'd be honored. You know where we started, the autopsy room." I said, "I'm not going in there, Colonel. That's like a holy of holies. I don't belong there, and people that are trained there should be there." He said, "There's no one on the table." I said, "That's not the point. I'm not going to go in and disrespect that very place by gawking and looking." He said, "I understand." I said, "But Colonel, is this not the most difficult assignment you've ever been given?" He said, "Not here, but come," he said, "I'll take you there." And he took me over to the Fisher House, and he took me to the room that's filled with uniforms of all branches, thousands of uniforms, that one day every uniform will contain in it the remains of our national treasures, our heroes who die for our freedom. He took me to another place that had a little room in it. When he opened the door, I knew where I was. The giant stuffed panda bear, the little Tonka trucks. It was the romper room where the children are confused. This time the adults are crying and the kids are not. And it was the blackboard that got me. Not really the blackboard eye level to a child, not an adult. It's what was written on the blackboard, and on it was written, "My mommy meant the world to me." My knees got weak and my lips trembled and my tongue stuttered when I said, "It's here, isn't it, Colonel? The most difficult assignment of your tour of duty?" He said, "Close, but not quite. Come," he said, "I'll take you there." And he took me to the flight line where the giant C-5A, the C-130, the C-17, C is in cargo. These are planes that carry other aircraft, carry giant tanks or masses of troops. This day it had the heaviest load it would ever carry, strapped to the middle of a cavernous aircraft with a flag draped over it. As it was escorted off that aircraft down the ramp by young men and women in military in perfect step and unison, it was boarded onto a truck that didn't have a chip in the paint. The tires glistened, the wheels shined. A giant rope separated the parents from the scene unfolding as for the first time they would see the canister, the case, the coffin that their child was in. I said, "Colonel, what happens next?" He said, "We have to watch because sometimes we have a runner." I said, "A runner?" He said, "That's when Mama jumps over that rope, and when that truck goes down to that room you didn't want to go into, she takes off chasing that truck." I said, "Oh, Lord, Colonel, please tell me it can't be worse than this." He said, "Mr. Roever, I have to jump that rope and I have to catch her." I said, "Colonel, what do you say to her?" He said, "Mr. Roever, that's the most difficult assignment in 30 years of service to my country that I have ever been given, because there's nothing I can say to bring her baby back to her arms one last time." Abraham Lincoln wrote a letter to a Mrs. Bixby. He writes, and I paraphrase for time, "It has come to my attention through the War Department of the great state of Massachusetts that you have lost all five of your sons who died gloriously on the field of battle fighting for the cause of the Union. He goes on, and I paraphrase, these words are not intended to persuade you or assuage you from your rightful grief. Yet, he said, they must be tendered. And listen now to the quote of the closing line of his letter to Mrs. Bixby. The solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, freedom is not free. And I hope this little short video will help you understand that.
Angel Flight Bravo 03. Gear down 5 miles. We have a hero on board tonight. Angel Flight Bravo 02. You are number 1 for landing. Welcome home.
There's another angel flight coming, and that's when the trump of the Lord shall sound. I want to be on that one. How about you? Students, it's been an honor to be with you today. In sign language, that means I love you, but my thumb got blown off, so I speak sign language with a lisp. It means I love you. I really do. I hope someday they'll take a risk and have me come back. I would like to check on my heart because I'm going to leave it here today. I wrote a book, hadn't been colored in yet. It's back there. It's called Scarred. I brought a lot of them. We're reducing the price. It's a $10 purchase. I get no royalties, never have, never will. Every penny of it goes to pay scholarships for our warriors who come to me with no legs, and we get them back on their feet. When you purchase that book, you're making a difference in a warrior's life. I hope many of you will buy the book. I'll go back to autograph them. I love you. My name is Dave Roever, and I approved of this message.
Awesome job. Thank you, sir. That's good. And again, to our guests from the community and every veteran in this house, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to express our appreciation to you. And as Terry mentioned just a few moments ago, we'll be having a group picture right here with Dave, and we would encourage everyone to come right to these steps right in front of the flag. And thanks again for making this a great week. What a special day to end it up. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.